This is a writing arm chair, a Windsor chair, that I showed several weeks ago, the modeling of the chair. Recently I was asked how I did the sculpturing in SketchUp. And so this video is showing some of the basic methods I used to do that. And we'll start off with the flat seat and no sculpturing, but with the idea of what are the profiles at different parts. For example, side-to-side profile back here, so there's a dip down in the middle of the seat, and then here's a front-to-back profile showing that it's high in the front at the center line and then dips backward, and then the front profile where the front edge is scooped out as shown here. So I need to know those basic profiles to start the process, and then I'll use Curvaloft. This is a plugin, and the plugin will do surfaces on spline curves. So I need the process of making some spline curves on which the sculptured surface can be placed. Now I started out here with just the flat plate, and the way I did that is just open up the flat seat and do a Control-C copy of that flat plate and bring that copy over to the next stage here. So that's how I got this flat plate. That's going to be the sculptured area of half of the seat. There's no reason in doing both halves, particularly if you have a symmetrical seat. I'll talk a little bit about that later. Then I orient these profiles, one in the front, one in the middle, and one at the very end. And to create that profile in the front, I need to do an intersection to create that spline curve. So I've push-pulled some of these shapes, these profiles, and intersected them to create that curve here in the intersection. Right along this area here is the actual rounding over in the front of the seat. And so I created that by doing intersections of these two surfaces. And then to pick out that curve that I need, I've got the back curve is pretty easy to see. That's just right off the top of the seat. Then the middle one, and then this front one. Let me edit the group and delete all the faces and edges that I don't need. And all I want left is that spline curve that is shown here in the middle. And that's the part that I need. That curve located there. So I'll just go back and undo what I just did and show you how that curve looks in the next step of the process. So let me go to the three curves now that are left over from these processes. Here's the back curve, and then the middle curve, and let me set that scene. There's the front profile that I need. Here's the middle, or the lowest point of the seat curve, and here's the back edge that's up at the top of the face of the seat. With these three spline curves now, and this plugin called Curvaloft, I can create that sculptured face that in between those three surfaces. Let me show you how that works. I just did it a few minutes ago here, and you could see the results of that. But let me just show you how that works. I'll delete this shape and go back to our spline curves, the three spline curves, and select all three of those curves. Move a copy over to the right down the red axis, and now I'm ready to run Curvaloft. After selecting these three spline curves, pick this icon here and wait for the shape to generate, and then click to finish the curve, accept it, and close out of the plug-in. Now the spline curves are still in this picture, although the sculptured surface is a group. So I'll delete the spline curves. I don't need them anymore. And take this sculptured face, sculptured surface, and copy it and bring it over to the, let me take out what I just did a few minutes ago, that sculptured face. So I've got the flat seat and with no face in the top, and I'll bring over a copy of this sculptured surface, pick it at make sure I've picked it right at a corner that I can connect onto the seat. And I need to zoom in here closely to make sure I make an accurate connection. That looks good. And now I've got a sculptured surface into the seat assembly. Now, this particular writing arm surface is not symmetrical. This is an unusual Windsor chair. Most seats I can do this half and I'm done. There's a little bit of cleanup to do at this junction here, but that just takes a few minutes. Clean that up. But I'll have to do the same process on the other half of the seat in the case of this type of a seat construction. And that's how I made the sculpturing.